change we made was we moved the
Hi, and welcome to the North Kingstown School Committee meeting of September 5th, 2023. The first order of agenda is 6 o'clock going into executive session. So I will entertain a motion to convene an open session and to recess to executive session pursuant to Rhode Island General Law 42464 for discussion of any discussions of job performance, character, or physical or mental health of a person or persons, provided that such persons or persons affected shall have been notified in advance in writing and advised that they may require that the discussion be held in an open meeting pursuant to Rhode Island General Law 42465A1. 2, sessions pertaining to potential litigation, legal advice, and collective bargaining pursuant to Rhode Island General Law 42465A9, ESP grievance hearings. And 3, discussion of any investigative proceedings regarding allegations of misconduct, either civil or criminal, pursuant to Rhode Island General Law 42465A4. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you very much. We will adjourn to executive session.
I was So we will reconvene into open session, and I'll disclose that there were no votes taken in executives. But no, we'll do that later, actually. Just kidding. And so the next item on the agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance. So please join me if you can. Pledge of Allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Erin Earl.
Here.
Robert Case.
Here.
Jennifer Hoskins. Here. Jennifer Lima. Here. Thomas Briley.
Here.
Christine LaPierre.
Okay, and the calendar.
Tuesday, September 19th, school committee business meeting. Tuesday, October 17th, school committee business meeting. Monday, September 11th, policy subcommittee. Wednesday, September 20th, DEI subcommittee. There will be school committee office hours on Tuesday, September 12th, 6:30 to 7:30 in the North Kingstown High School cafeteria.
Okay, thank you. And then the next item is presentations and recognition. So I will turn it over to Dr.
Thank you. Do we have the presentation to put up, Chaz?
Yes, and of course, as soon as I go to hit it, it
Okay.
updates. Yeah.
While you're doing that, I'll just take another moment. If anyone would like to speak for citizens comment, we have the sign-up sheet up here. So just let Jules know if you'd like to sign up to speak.
It's for times like this, it's always good to do your updates when they first tell you to do it. For moments just like this is always my fear as well.
Of all people, too.
The irony.
We doing the awards first?
Yeah, no, that's. If you don't mind clicking it through as we
You got it.
go. Or actually, I mean, can
Do you
we
have to
just bring
adjust
that
the
over
camera?
here? Is that okay?
I have like a wanted.
Yeah, do you have to adjust the camera?
I will, yes, thank you. Sorry about that.
You don't have to put it on there. It's just.
Stream up.
Okay, thank you. All set? Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, I would like to start off tonight's meeting with recognizing a few of our staff. I think it's really important that we note the hard work that our employees do here in North Kingstown. So I would first like to start announcing to you and to the community the Educational Support Professional of the Year for this current school year. Nominations were put through last year at the end of the school year, and then it's kept a secret until opening day at Convocation. And so this evening we have Mrs. Stephanie Weber. Ms. Weber was nominated by her peers at Quinessa Elementary School as the Support Professional of the Year for North Kingstown. And I've had the privilege many years ago to work with, we were babies then, right? We were babies back then. But we worked together when I was a special ed teacher and Stephanie was a TA. So I can say that she is an amazing teacher assistant here in North Kingstown. Dedicates a lot of time to the children and the staff. But I want to highlight some of the points that her colleagues mentioned in the nomination that she received. You can sit. You don't have to stand the whole time.
I'll move my chair so I can see you. No, you're good.
But I know Stephanie has worked in a few different positions in the district during her time here as a teacher assistant. But most recently, she is at Quinessa Elementary School. And the teachers that wrote this nomination put in quotes such as, "What do you need? How can I help? What can I do for you?" She's always ready to give a hand to the staff at the school. She's always right there ready to do whatever she can for the students. And her dedication has really shown through. And she was new to the building, but not really new because you've worked there before because you and I were there years ago. But she's back there again and just kind of steps in. She steps in to support any student, any staff member that's there at the building. And they really noted how she's a dedicated team player who can work with, support, and mentor other teacher assistants and teachers in the Knesset community. This year alone, Stephanie has taken new teacher assistants under her wing to help them be successful in their role. She has also been open to changes in her role. Her flexibility has been greatly appreciated by teachers as her classroom assignments have changed in order to support student needs. Stephanie has enhanced the image of educational support professionals by being a driving force in Knesset success. So thank you. That's really important. And we know what a wonderful school it is at Knesset and the support that you provide to everyone there. Stephanie's presence can be felt in all areas of the school, from first grade, where she spends most of her day supporting struggling students, to across the building, where she continues to make connections with students she previously supported years ago. Her willingness to go where the support is needed is inspiring to all, and I hope other teacher assistants and others really work up to what Stephanie shows and displays to others, and she's a role model here, and we're lucky to have you. So thank you for everything that you do. So at convocation, we recognize Stephanie in front of everyone in the district, and that's a picture from that day with the principal and the two teachers at the school. Thank you.
Thank you.
So next we have our Teacher of the Year. So the Teacher of the Year is from North Kingstown High School this year, and it's Miss Mallory Shields. Miss Shields is the science and engineering teacher at the high school in the CTE program, and she does amazing work there for the students. And I'm just going to read a little bit of what was in her nomination that really describes the work that she does and goes above and beyond for the students, not only at the high school, but throughout the district. Ms. Shields goes above and beyond to inspire and empower students to reach their individual potential. She teaches students from vast, varied backgrounds. She teaches students in the challenging engineering courses at North Kingstown High School to Success Academy science courses. She willingly chooses to teach students that are academically high achieving to students that have some academic gaps and need additional support in their learning. Ms. Shields has the ability to teach all engineering courses based on demand, but she asks her supervisors to continue to assign her the essay classes. She likes to work with all levels of students to make her the best teacher she can be. Ms. Shields has led and empowered the engineering students to facilitate monthly STEM nights for North Kingstown and Jamestown middle schools and North Kingstown elementary students over the course of the 22-23 school year. These events have not only been a huge success in the community, but have also allowed students in the engineering program to gain work-based learning experiences and taught them to work with younger students building their 21st century skills. Ms. Shields is one of the most dedicated educators that we have and had the privilege to work with. She is also a team player in working with administration at both building and central office level. She is always the one her colleagues can count on with implementation of new initiatives. She generously gives hours of her time to students, colleagues, and community through her involvement in educational initiatives. I just want to thank you for all your dedication, and it doesn't go unnoticed. And we're really lucky to have you as well here in the district, so thank you. And we have one more recognition this year. This is something different that was added. It is called the Distinguished Service Award, and this year it is given to Mrs. Colleen Schnack. Mrs. Schnack Mrs. Schnack is the school nurse at Stony Lane, but she is also the school nurse coordinator for the district. And we know back in 2020, when schools had to abruptly stop because of the COVID pandemic, there were a lot of changes that were put into place at the schools, and a lot was held on the nurses. Mrs. Schnack, as the coordinator, dedicated time in supporting all of her staff, supporting the schools, the students, the families, and helping us to put in safe procedures so that way when we came back from the closure, we could operate our schools here and have a safe learning environment for everyone. And she put in many hours I know I wasn't here in the district at the time working, but as a parent, it was noticeable. And I just know from the work that we had to do in Jamestown, hours and hours were probably put in your time, not just during the school hours, but at night and weekends. So we want to thank you for that and everything that you did do. And that has not gone unnoticed, even though it was from a few years ago, but also for the past few years, because it went on longer than a year. So we really appreciate all of that you have done and continue to do, and the amazing work that you do here for the students and community of North Kingstown. So thank you.
Congratulations, everyone, and thank you so much for coming on the first day of school. I know it's a long day, I'm sure, for all of you. This room is awful for this, but if you three wouldn't mind coming up, we'll take a picture with you here. But I've been thinking about it. I think you should go out and in over here, and then we'll just do it right here if you don't mind. And then, Jules, do you want to? Ken, do you want to be in it? Thank you.
Teachable moment. To begin with. I have to show how to so even with us.
We're just gonna do it really quick. It'll be okay. We'll do all three of them. How about right? That's easier unless you'd like to. Here.
All right, ready? Let me do one more. Fabulous.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Yes. Yeah. And the next item on the agenda is citizens' comments. And so the only person that signed up is Pamela. So Pamela?
Pam Panero, 710 Slocum Road, Saunderstown. First of all, I want to say that I came home today and I had two very happy children. They're in the middle school, Wickford, 6th and 8th grade, and they were enthusiastic, bubbly, excited. So I thank all the Wickford middle school staff. They won't admit that they were excited, but they were really excited. You could just tell as they're bouncing up and down telling me stories. So that was a great start to the year. Thank you. I'm here tonight to support Dr. Duva's recommendation to make the new middle school 6th through 8th grade. I have always been in favor of 6th through 8th grade. I never wanted 5th through 8th grade, even when I did go to the community meetings. I know I was one of a few, but I strongly believe in 6th through 8th grade. Does not mean I support the bond overall, but if it does pass, I would at least like it to be 6th through 8th. I just think it's a better fit for the way our district has run for all of these many, many, many years, and it would fit into the community better. And this is totally random, but I don't know if you all have given any thought to anything you could do to this room to make this screen any more user-friendly or seeable for the audience. I hate to see that it's easier to see it from online. I would love to see more people actually attend the meetings, but when you can barely see the screen. So I don't know if you've given any thought, but that's just a suggestion. And my only other thing is, I know there's been mention of community engagement sessions. I really hope those dates are going to be coming out tonight, because I don't know about you all, but my September calendar is pretty darn full. There's a vote in a very short time. Early voting starts mid-October, and my calendar is pretty full. I need to get those dates on my
They're
calendar.
coming out tomorrow.
Great, thank
Because of
you.
having a full calendar, it took us a while to find dates that didn't overlap with everything else going on.
Understood. I'm doing that myself, so it's just hard with all the kiddo activities, so thank you.
Thank you. Any other citizens like to sign up? Okay. Thank you very much. Seeing none, we'll go on to the next item on the agenda, which is the superintendent's report. Dr. Duva?
Yes, just wait for the back up. I'll start while he's getting it. So, like this, I'm saying, I notice I'm saying a lot. Not that one. No. Back to the previous one. Thank you. My superintendent's report today is about opening of school and everything we've done over the past week. Mr. Mezzanotte and I were out at all of the schools today taking pictures. I thought it would be best to put it in as a visual so you can actually see what happened. Today was an exciting day. I will say that we had a great start to the opening of this school year for all of our students and schools. There was a lot of excitement in the schools. I know Panero mentioned her students being excited. We saw it at all the schools that we went to with the children as well as the staff. So these are just some pictures. This is at North Kingstown High School. Today was just freshman orientation. We were able to, went too far. And it was freshman orientation. They had the leadership team there welcoming the students. We walked in, they had music playing. It was exciting. It was a very welcoming feel walking into that high school today. And I hope the students, the freshmen, had a great day just being able to have the building to themselves and getting oriented. And then we split up. We went to each of the middle schools. We went to, Mr. Mezzanotte went to DMS. I went to Bickford Middle. Just a few pictures from there. The bus drivers were excited to be out. The bus monitors we were chatting to. Kids were just happy. Teachers were happy. Staff was happy. It was a good feeling. It was a good feeling from convocation last week right through today. And from the emails we're getting, I can say this is going to be a great year. Staff is ready to be back. They're really excited. And that's good for students, right? When you have excited staff, you have excited students. And that's the most important thing, that we're out there and supporting them. So just a few pictures to see what's happening. The next slides are from the elementary schools, just a little bit. I mean, you can see the interaction between the staff greeting the kids. Mr. Mezzanotte sent out an article the other day to principals to share with teachers about the importance of greeting students. Right? It starts from the second they get on the bus with our bus monitors and bus drivers, and they play such an important role to when the children get to school in greeting them and making sure everyone feels welcomed of just walking into that building and they know that it's their building as well. So it was great for all of the schools that we have there. The only school I don't have pictures from is Hamilton. We'll have to get some for next time. Put some on the website.
We're getting them.
So we tried to get to all of them,
Yeah.
but we didn't make a rival for everyone. But it was a good start. The schools are bright, they're clean, classrooms are decorated, they're cheery. I don't have more to say than that, just being really happy with what we saw today on day one. And I think as school committee, you should be proud of what's happening in the schools. Go on to the next one. Just a little review of convocation and the professional learning that happened last week. So we started convocation off with focusing on our district values. We really believe that you need to have values, and that was in the newsletter that we sent out. I shared with the school committee. We put it out there for everyone to read. At the administrative team retreat, we worked on what those values were, and we shared it out with staff. Principals then shared it with their staff meetings and really talked about at the school what those values need to be, and really having a focus on integrity and trust, collaboration, transparency, being student-focused, and also continuous growth, right? Those are the values we should be instilling and working on. We also focus on staff well-being at convocation. We worked with the wellness committee, and we had raffles from gift cards and certificates that they got from the community. It just really got everyone excited to be there. We talked about student voice, how important student voice is, and that students are part of decisions that are happening at the schools. I challenged our staff and said, you need to get involved in your school improvement teams. You need to be part of what's happening. We need to get the students involved. They need to be part of that. We need to listen and hear from them. And we also talk about community involvement, how important it is as a community that we're getting our community involved in what we're doing. And we talked about district initiatives. I'll just touch base on a few of these. It's going to be a focus on instructional practices and leadership. Part of that is doing instructional rounds, getting out into the classrooms and observing what's happening, getting staff involved in that, going out and seeing each other's classrooms, and really having a focus on the instruction. And what are we doing well? And what can we do? Where can we be better? Focus on staff wellness, making sure our staff knows they're supported. And we really talked about it as administration. It's important that we're out there, we're in the schools, we're in the classrooms, we're seeing what's happening. And they heard that. And we received emails and we heard back from staff since last week about really feeling appreciated knowing that. Creating positive school cultures, having a focus on that, looking at the surveys that were completed last year, putting together a continuum of social emotional learning supports throughout the district. We started working on that at our administrative team retreat, and we shared that with the staff about, what do we have that's in place at the elementary level, middle school level, high school level, and making sure there's a continuum of support and services that we have that we can provide to students. Student belonging and engagement is really important. It goes back to that student voice. And also diversity and equity. Just really looking at making sure we have a true understanding and that that our environments are welcoming for all students. All students know they're accepted. And also looking at how we treat each other, right? It's just really important that we have that focus as well. Some of the professional learning that we did last week, there was one day was dedicated to science of reading training, which goes back to the Right to Read Act and teaches how to do the proficiency training and the awareness training. We did our Title IX training, which was district-wide. We also did mandatory reporting. There was training at the middle school and high school on the Smart Pass training, and we'll provide more information on that as well. Grade level curriculum meetings were at the elementary level where there was a focus on the ELA curriculum and math curriculum and just really kind of setting expectations and standards across the district where the grade levels were able to get together. There were curriculum department meetings at the middle school and high school. There was other required training as well, dating violence training for middle school and high school. And for the first time in a very long time, the entire special education department got together for an afternoon with Dr. Santa and Mrs. Winnock to have a focus on policy and procedures. I want to say that having Rachel here is like a breath of fresh air for them. We've heard from many special educators how happy they are to have Rachel back and the work that she's doing in pulling the entire department together district-wide to really set consistency and support. So thank you for doing that. Just an update on Title IX training. I shared with you that at our last meeting that all the administrators were going to have their training that happened on August 22nd, so all administrators in the district had Title IX training with Martin Gilman. On the 29th and 30th, we started the training with some of our high school sports teams, the boys and girls cross country, field hockey, girls volleyball, and cheer. And then on August 31st, which was the third PD day for the district, all the staff in the district had the training as well. We videotaped that training, so that way as we get new staff or if anyone missed it, they'll be able to watch that video to have that training as well. We still are working on getting additional teams scheduled in, and that will happen over the next few weeks for football, boys and girls soccer, the coaches, and I need to work with the principals on getting the training in for all of the middle school and high school staff. So high school students, there'll be an overlap because those that are on sports teams are having the same training, but we do need to put it in for all of the high school students. And then when the athletics for the winter and spring season start, we'll schedule those later in the year for those teams as well. Facilities update for you. I asked Bob Kernty, our facilities director, to provide what work was done over the summer at the schools. We'll say going through the schools, and if any of you want to go on a visit, I'd love to set that up so you can come in and see the schools. The schools are clean. They're shiny, they're bright. All of the schools really look nice right now. Some of the work that was done was HVAC units had filters changed and belts were checked. We know at Fishing Cove there was cooling repairs done. That was an emergency repair. The third floor at the high school, HVAC issues were repaired and district boilers were cleaned and ready for heating season. The painting, there were certain schools that received painting that's usually on a cycle, right? Every year certain schools are refreshed. So this year Hamilton, Forest Park, the high school assistant principal offices were painted. High school kitchen and parking lot striping was done as well. Other things around the grounds, It was general lawn maintenance, field lining, playground mulch at all elementary schools was replaced. Garden beds were mulched, and tree trimming. For electrical, all main building breakers were tested and reset. All emergency lights were tested. If any needed repairs, they were repaired and inspected. High school new wrestling center court light was replaced, and wiring for the new kitchen equipment district-wide. Plumbing was done at Stony Lane, and all of the district septic pumping was completed. Stadium LED lighting was upgraded as well. And then general maintenance was completed. Hamilton Courtyard had some repairs, flooring at Hamilton. Hamilton had some new benches in the courtyard. There was courtyard cleaning done at all schools. Excuse me. There was work done on furniture at the middle school, Wickford Middle School, North Kingstown High School. There was mold remediation done at North Kingstown High School. Furniture moves were done. So this is just getting into some of the work that just had to be done over the summer with changing the classrooms. There was kitchen equipment disposals. The gym floors were resurfaced at the high school small gym, the high school large gym, and the DMS gym. Storage containers were cleaned out and removals were made. The stadium had some upkeep. The gym closet, new wrestling mat shelving was put in, window installation at TMS, and district battery recycling. And then on the other side is the typical inspections that have to be done for fire alarm testing, fire suppression testing, fire extinguisher testing, kitchen hood inspection, elevator and lift inspection, and general inspections testing, and preventative maintenance was taken care of. So a lot was done throughout the district over the summer. Just want to thank the facilities department for getting all of that done. And then last, just as a staff update, there are still some positions staff-wide, district-wide for staffing that we are still hiring. There are some teacher assistant positions that are still vacant that we're working to fill. 2 social worker positions and psychologist positions that we're working on. And the other, at the high school, we have some maternity leaves. So just where we have most of the classes filled there, we have a world language that we're working on and an art teacher. And then we have new staff that we just hired this week as well, which will provide an update on all new staff with the next quarterly meeting. So we're getting there. There's still some vacancies we're working on, but we're really working hard on going out there and recruiting staff to come here to North Kingstown. So those are all my updates for tonight. Any questions from anyone?
Thank you so much. Any questions from the committee? Thank you. Do you have one more, or was it all wrapped up into one?
It was all.
Yeah, perfect. Oh, I see, yeah. Okay, thank you so much. Okay, so we'll move on to routine items. For item A, executive session, to seal the executive minutes of September 5th. So can we get a motion to do that?
So moved. Second.
Okay, so we'll go with Tom and then Rob. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. And I will disclose that there was one vote taken to table an item to a future meeting. Is that good for that?
2 votes taken.
Yeah. One item, 2 tables.
Correct.
Yeah. Perfect.
Sorry.
No worries. Okay, and then we'll move on to the consent agenda. Before we do that, would anyone like to remove anything from the consent agenda? Okay, hearing none, can we get a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Okay, have a second. Okay, any discussion? All those in favor? Okay, perfect. Thank you so much. And then I do not believe we have anything for item D. Oh, that's all. Excuse me, that's under consent. So move on to unfinished business. The first item is 2023-2024 school budget. And so the first item under that is the approval of allocation of fund balance. Can we get a motion for that?
Make a motion to discuss.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you.
Sorry.
No worries. And so we'll open it up and I'll turn it over to Dr. Duva to present to us this item.
So this evening, worked with Elle Phoenix, our controller, on updating the fund balance for the committee to review and approve the allocations for this coming this fiscal year, as well as the fund balance reserve that you can if you choose to tonight to assign for the contracts that we have in front of you. I'd like Elle will present the fund balance sheet and go through that for all of us, and if you have any questions, we'll go from there.
Hi, I'm Elle Phoenix. I'm controller here at NKSD. So what you have in front of you, the first page with that,
Is it possible to make that bigger?
Chelsea's doing something.
Okay.
Yeah, Chaz, we're going to need bigger than that.
Yeah, just
Like all the way to the like green line, maybe. Perfect. Thank you so much.
Good.
So,
that's better.
So what you have in front of you is the I guess the peeling of the onion of the general fund alongside of the NKSD capital reserve and also funding that came from the town capital fund. So the first column that you see, the general fund, is what was presented several months ago before we were able to do a deep dive into the analysis and some of the other items that were in, I guess, in documentation that we had not pulled forward. Since I had just started, some of this documentation wasn't available to me. A lot of it was part of the capital improvement plan that Mary King had put forth. So that first column you see was my approach when I first started here with the information that I had available. The second column you see, the updated general fund, takes into account the monies that we were able to discover were put aside for the capital reserve in Mary King's plan. And the far column to the right also gives you another funding source of town capital reserves that were given to the school over the last 2 years. And that was all part of an ask that Mary King presented back in November of 2021. Prior school committee had approved all of these things in detail. So what we did was, instead of keeping everything in one general fund, for ease of understanding these three very separate funding sources and the different groups of expenses that were associated with each of them, we decided to create these three columns to explain to you. If we're going to go from all the way to the right, because that's the easiest one to understand, the town gave us $1.4 million. That was part of a larger ask that spans all the way to fiscal '25. Up to this point, we have received $1.4 million. We have not gotten confirmation or a rejection for having to receive the funds that was asked for fiscal '24. So we're not sure if that money is going to come across, but as of this point, it has not been received. So the $1.4 million you see there's nothing that's unreserved, because the full $1.4 million was an ask for very specific projects. So you'll see the details of those very specific projects on the second page. So everything on the first page is in, the breakouts are in further detail on the second page. So Chaz, if you want to hop to the second page. So here we're looking at the same columns. Column E here in this case is the town capital fund balance, and that is the detail of the $1.4 million. That is how that money is allocated, again, based on this ask from 2021. Okay. And while we're here, we'll just kind of go through the other two columns. One column over to the right, the $19,900, that's the North Kingstown Capital Reserve. That's part of the ask as well. That money was based on surpluses for prior years, and you'll see that $19,000 be pulled onto the first page again. So when we go back to the first page, the column C, again, is the same, is detail for the updated general fund allocations, all based on the same capital improvement plan. So if you notice the line on the bottom of here, the blue should be in blue, all the way, bring it down a little bit, Chaz, the final number there, yeah, that blue bar, those are the totals that are going to pull back to the first page. So everything you see here is the detail for this one line item on the bottom that's going to pull back to the second page. All of these funds are the majority of these funds have been earmarked, but again, by school committee could be moved around and decided on if the projects are not something that the school committee still wants to move forward with. But I've met with Mike, who has also met with Bob Carenti, and all of these projects have been discussed, and the understanding of what goes into each one of them has been discussed and put forth on the schedule as it was. So you want to go back to page 1? So back to page 1. Now we can go back to the updated general fund column, in this sense, column C, because that's really the one that we're going to focus on today. Those other two columns have been allocated, earmarked, somewhat restricted. This column is the updated general fund, which is the new representation of what I had originally presented to you months ago without all that other detail. I didn't have the detail for the town capital money, didn't have the detail for the reserve money yet. Once we do that and we peel all this apart, we've come up with the updated general fund here, which allows for a $998,000 unreserved value at the bottom of that can be allocated according to the school committee's needs and what you want to put that forth. Any questions on?
I have questions.
Sure.
Going through on the detail, there's a line item, if you scroll down a little bit, right there, the reserve account balance 15% of proprietary funds. Can you explain that, please?
Where are you?
Line 17.
Yeah, that's the reserve, the 15% that comes out of the gate receipts, the STEM camp, all of those enterprise funds. That is part of the 85-15 split that's in the policies.
From facilities use?
For building use, right, all of the 15% of all the proprietary funds, enterprise funds.
So, but those are enterprise funds, not general funds?
No, that 15% is general funds.
Okay.
That's the whole thing. The 85% stays in the enterprise fund, and the 15% comes to general fund.
Okay. So now if you go down to where the, a little bit, it's on the other page, sorry, on page 2.
Page 2.
So if I read this correctly, it looks like from column B, where you have the allocations, it looks like what you've done is you've changed the holdings to say that, okay, the total amount in column B, you've now broken it out between column C and column E.
No.
What is
No,
it?
they're somewhat different. They're different funding sources.
But the total, if you scroll up, like before, $500,000 for the 5-year capital plan. Now it's 225 and 225. So it's still 500. Same thing
Correct.
with the fleet upgrades. It was 150, so it's still 75 and 75.
But it doesn't, that's not the rule of thumb for all of them, because you'll also see down below, if you look at parking lots and sidewalks, there was 50,000 in the general fund, but the town capital money was 100,000, therefore you no longer have to use any money in the general fund, and you have additional money
Right,
in the
but I
town
guess
capital.
my
So
point
it's
is
not
where
exactly
you
the
have
split.
freed up money, we have
Correct.
not lost anything.
Correct.
Okay, that's
Correct.
my point. Okay. Was there a rollover at the end of this fiscal year?
Rollover
Like,
of
did
fiscal
we gain any
23's,
money?
you mean the
Surplus.
surplus? That has to be projected.
Okay.
We don't have a projection
When will we
for,
have that information?
we're in September. We have a good idea. I've got to do some year-end entries. So I think by the end of October, we can give you a draft, but we won't have a final number until the auditors complete their audit.
Okay.
And that audit is just started. It's just starting. We just received a list of deliverables, so that's just begun.
So we have to do $500,000 more for fiscal year 2024, correct?
Correct. For the reappropriation you're
Right.
referring to? Yes.
When do we have to do that?
It's already done. It needs to come out of the surplus out of fund balance. It's part of fund balance. It has to come down. July 1st is the reappropriation.
But so it has to come out still, correct?
Yeah, if you're looking at the 998, but that would, we do anticipate a $500,000 surplus for fiscal '23 minimum. I mean, that we're saying that would definitely come out of that. That reappropriation would come out of the surplus
Okay,
from
so we are
'23.
anticipating
Yes, at least that, yes,
$500,000.
yes.
Okay.
Yes, I would have
Other-
definitely noted that if I didn't feel that that was a minimum.
We'll give a break from Ms. Lima for 2 seconds. Anyone else have questions or comments about the presentation that we received? And again, we're just right now in a motion to discuss, but This item is under unfinished business, and I'll also turn it over to Dr. Duva to talk a little bit more about kind of if there was a motion to approve something, what we might need to take action on for today. So I know Ms. Lima probably has a couple more questions. We appreciate your thoroughness very, very much. But anyone else have any questions on what's been presented thus far? Okay, go ahead, Jen.
There's only $54,000 noted for Jacobs in the memo.
Where are you, Jen? In which 50?
So she's
In the other
referring to the
Oh,
memo I
okay.
sent.
So we're not done here.
But if I read the note from Jacobs, it's more than that. So
So-
where would the balance come
Yeah,
from?
so we're just looking to get up to the referendum right now,
Okay,
because if the bond passes, then the money will be coming from the bond to pay for the rest of the Perkins Eastman contract and the Jacobs contract. So
Okay.
what they did is they broke it down, so that way we're only looking at what we will owe them through the end of like October. right,
Okay.
To get to November 7th
Okay.
referendum.
okay.
So what we're looking to do tonight is I'm going to make a recommendation for you to, to commit funds from the fund balance to pay for those contracts through the referendum. Because then at that point, we wait for the vote, and then we'll know what direction we're going in.
Yeah. So to clarify where we are right now, so under this agenda item, we have this in front of us. And so is this just informative information, Dr. Duva, for the committee to have for that later conversation, or do you need the committee to take action on this
So
item
what we
as presented?
Yeah, so just up to the agenda item. So we provided you the fund balance projection. What I am asking for at this point is for you to approve an allocation from this fund balance to put towards the payments for the Perkins Eastman contract and the Jacobs contract. And in the memo, we've explained what is available in the fund balance, which is the $998,054. And my recommendation to you is to commit a total of $904,000 of that $998,000 to allocate towards the Perkins Eastman contract, which is an amount of $850,000, and the Jacobs contract, which would be in the amount of $54,000. And in the packet, you have the contracts later to approve. But what we need to do first, right now, is for you to take my recommendation and to decide if you want to approve taking what's in that fund balance to allocate towards those two contracts.
Can we hold that until we've discussed the contract?
Yeah, I mean, you could make, right now we have a motion for discussion. You could make a motion to move this item to lower on the agenda. You just
I'd
need a
like to
second.
move, I think it makes sense to hold that until we've actually
Sure.
discussed the contract.
I would just caution before maybe we close this discussion, if anyone has any further questions, I want to make sure that the topics stay separate, if you
Right.
will. So I want to make sure that the committee has a really good understanding of what we're seeing here, how much we have in fund balance, and if there's any other questions, in kind of general questions. So is everyone?
I feel comfortable with understanding the breakout of the fund balance. I would like, I felt like we had been told we would have more information on what our surplus would be before this point. That was my understanding from previous conversations, and I'm feeling like we're being told something different right now. But I'm hearing it's at least $500,000 to cover the
General fund
general fund
reappropriation
reappropriation that we know we have to make, so that at least covers that. So I'm comfortable, with at least understanding the fund balance that we have. But I'd like to hold off allocating anything until we've had a discussion on the contract.
Okay, so you can.
So I'll make that motion.
Okay, so Ms. Lima made a motion to move agenda item A under unfinished business to after item C, I believe. correct? Okay, does she have a second?
Second.
Okay, any further discussion on this motion?
So just so you know, the Jacobs contract is further.
Just kidding.
It's under new business.
Be finished.
Okay, so we will go,
Or do we want to move those two up? Whatever makes the most sense.
where's the other one?
So it's under new business because it's an extension.
So
Yeah, that was-
applicants.
We have to move both of them up so we can talk about both those contracts.
I'm just trying to think of the easiest way to do this. Okay, I was thinking move, because you're moving from new business to unfinished
Okay.
business, and my Robert's Rules brain is exploding. I would recommend, we could just move it after new business, probably, this item
Okay.
there, and that would let us be able to talk about both the unfinished and the new business, and then come back to it.
Okay.
And so, do you want to withdraw your motion? Because I think we specified where, or no?
Okay, I'll withdraw my
Yeah,
motion.
okay. So then we'll just make a motion to move this item to after new business and before correspondence. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so we'll be back to this one. And thank you so much, Thank you so much, Al, for that presentation and information. Okay, so we'll move on to the next item under unfinished business, which is the MOA for the SRO. Do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion to discuss.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Okay, so we'll open up for discussion and we'll turn it over to Dr. Duva to present the draft that was provided to the committee as part of the agenda packet.
Yes. So you have in the packet, it's a draft MOA for the SRO position that was worked on. Andrew and I had met with the captain and chief of the police department. We had something that they had provided, and then Andrew had a sample of an MOA as well, and we went through both of them. And this is what we came back with. Andrew and I felt comfortable with this MOA as far as explaining the role of the resource officer, and it goes through a chain of command if there's any concerns of it going through to the high school principal, to the superintendent, the ability for us to have that open conversation with the police department regarding anything. It spells out that the resource officer does not get involved in any disciplinary actions or situations within school, because that's strictly for the administration of the high school. I'm trying to think. It gives an example of the duties of the SRO as far as training that the SRO goes through. It would be all of the training through the police department, but open to any suggestions from us in any training. Like, for example, we talked about the escalation training that we provide to our staff. The SRO officer could accompany our staff with that type of training. We have a section about compliance with FERPA, because it's important that we're dealing with student records and following FERPA along with the SRO working in the schools. There's an attached job description in here. So that's, if there's any questions or comments about it.
Thank you. Questions, comments, or discussion from the committee?
I have some questions. I have some concerns. We've talked about this several times. This MOU really, I want to preface this by saying that this has nothing to do with Officer Manick. I have a great amount of respect for him, and I actually believe that he is a really good fit for this position. This is not about the person who is currently filling this position. This is about the position itself. I don't believe that it is appropriate to have an SRO in a school without a clear delineation of what that SRO's responsibilities are. And I've done a lot of research on this, and there actually are best practices for MOUs for SROs, and this MOU does not fit in with what those best practices are. DOJ has a list of best practices. The National Resource Association for SROs has a list of best practices, and this MOU is missing several of those things. You know, there should be, the MOU should spell out clearly what the selection process is, what types of specialized qualifications and traits that the SRO should have. It should spell out what the system of evaluation and supervision is for the SRO is that is specifically tailored to their duties and their expectations. It should have a system to track what the training is. It should spell out specifically what that training is as it relates to things like you said. It shouldn't be left up to a nebulous agreement that those SROs are going to take place. It should specifically cover things like implicit bias, de-escalation. You know, it should have a feedback program to review what the you know, that the SRO is meeting what the expectations is. It concerns me that the NKPD is not prepared to commit these things to writing, and my question would be why. And I would really like to revisit this with them. You know, we need to face the fact that there can be issues with policing in schools, you know, and we need to ensure that we're protecting all of our students, and we need to have it spelled out to the best that we can to make sure that we're protecting the students in our buildings.
Thank you. Other discussions or questions or thoughts from the committee? One of the questions I just had was, and I know this is a draft of the language, but we have been trying to move a little bit closer to inclusive language. So one of the recommendations I would want to see before we finalize this is just switching any of the his, her references to be more inclusive. I think we've been doing that in a lot of our policies, and so I noticed that that was in the memo. Would like to see before we final approve it, those updated. And another question I had or thought was about if the principal at the high school where our SRO was had been able to take a look at this and give any feedback. And so,
No, Mrs. Finkelstein has not reviewed this. It was just through
that's
Andrew
Yep.
and myself, so we can have you look at it.
And then to Ms. Lima's points, you know, with some of the questions, you know, I don't know if you are able to respond to any of them about some of those things that Ms. Lima had brought up as far as, you know, things that were in the different drafts, et cetera, and possibility of maybe having those in, or maybe some of the reasons that there's some challenges with the language between the other department. And thank you for both of you for meeting with the North Kingstown Police Department.
So I can say with the training, I have a list of all the trainings that they go through. I asked Detective St. Ange for that, and so he provided that. So we do have a listing of all the trainings. They do go through extensive trainings, and it includes some of what you were, like bias training is on there. And they're already going through that, and that I have it on my desk. I can go grab it. And I asked them for that, so that way we know what type of training they're having. Other training that we talk about, like de-escalation training, we talk about, like, you know, when we have that, we would have them be part of that training that we're providing to staff. If there's something else specifically that you have as a recommendation to put in here, we can take that and bring it back to them. I will say that I was thinking that, you know, looking at putting an MOU together, in a sense, less is more, meaning not having a document that's really long, because then sometimes it's also hard to follow in getting the main points in here regarding what their role is. We do have a job description in here that does explain the role. There's an example of duties, plus there's a job description as well
but that doesn't cover things like, how that SRO is selected, what type of qualifications they have, what type of, the MOU that we initially put forward is used by multiple districts in Massachusetts, so it's not too unwieldy to be followed. And my concern is that, again, like the worst case, obviously, like I said, in a perfect world, this isn't needed, but we're putting this together to ensure that it's not needed. And the resistance to implementing these things is what is concerning me. There's a organization in Providence that has done a lot of thorough research on police presence in schools, and they have put together a very thorough, and obviously it's a different student population, but it's Providence Alliance for Student Safety Plan. They've done a multi-page resource on policing in schools and the school to prison pipeline, and there's a lot of resources out there on the negative impact that SROs can have on students. And I think and like I said, DOJ has best practices out there, and this MOU doesn't touch on any of the things that they recommend. So why would we not want to do what best practices are for the MOUs?
Andrew, could you maybe talk a little bit about kind of like the legal part of this document, and then also thoughts on some of those things as far as training and selection and kind of the pros and cons of having it in a document like this?
Sure. So Ms. Lima is correct. We did sort of initially approach the department with the Massachusetts model, is what we'll refer to it as. And I think we had a good discussion with the police. They explained, part of their concern with regard to the selection of the officer and whatnot is you're somewhat unique here in North Kingston, where the police department funds the entire position. And so I think what Dr. Duva had suggested in the course of those discussions was, well, then can we get some information on the training and the types of training, and can we make suggestions and have a report to the school principal, get some more involvement. And that language is in here. It's certainly not as comprehensive as the initial draft was. I think, I don't want to speak for Dr. Duva, but I feel like, we got to a point where we thought that we had what we needed in here to move into the school year with an SRO agreement. Like any negotiated agreement, it's probably not perfect. I think there's things in here the police may not have wanted. There's things in here that we may have wanted, or vice versa. But I think, and again, I don't want to speak for you, Dr. Duva, but I feel like we got to a spot where we felt like if we wanted to have a contract going into the school year, which we anticipated that both sides did, this was a reasonable compromise.
Right, and we did talk about, and that's why we added with the chain of commands that, if there are any concerns regarding the SRO, that goes to the high school principal, that would go to Ms. Finkelstein, and then that would be brought to myself as far as those concerns, and reported back to the detective lieutenant at the police department regarding those concerns, because this position is fully funded by the town, by the police department, and it is their selection of who they believe is best fit based on qualifications and training to be placed in the school. And our supervisory piece of that is right within the supervision of what's happening in the building, and any concerns that are happening regarding someone that we are, just like any vendor or contract we have, it's, all of, those concerns are brought to our attention to have to, discuss how we're going to mediate, and then bring to the supervisor at the police department, who's the direct supervisor, because it is their employee. In the end, the police officer is the employee of the police department of the town, not us. But we would, in this agreement, it's, we would have a say as far as those concerns and bringing it forward to the supervisor if there was a situation that this person would have to be removed, or concerns regarding something that is not right in mistreatment and harming of students.
Go ahead.
No, I don't think the fact that they're paying for it means that we don't have any say over what we're looking for in the person. If you had a psychologist that you were contracting with who wasn't adhering to best practices for that profession, would you be content with saying, oh, well, that's okay? I mean, have you done any research on what is best practices for an SRO?
Andrew had shared that with me.
He shared the MOU with you. Have you done any research on what best practices for
No,
that
I didn't,
position
because
are?
I knew that some of what was in the MOU had those best practices in there.
Yeah.
And we're trying to work in
And none
agreement
of those are
between-
in what you would
And we're
watch.
trying to work in agreement between the police department and here. That would be something that's mutual for us to have in place.
I want you to look around this table. We are all white people sitting at this table, okay? It is typically not white people who are having interference and problems with the policing in our country. So I think it is very important that we not look at it from the lens of the people sitting at this table. And it is not our perspective that we need to be worried about. So I think we need to realize that not everybody walks through life with the same experience that we do, and typically policing, we need to face it, has disproportionately harmed black and brown students. And we do have black and brown students in our schools, and we need to make sure that we're looking out for them.
No, and I don't disagree with what you're saying at all. I completely support you and agree with you on that.
So as far as the selection piece, just working through, if we were to affirmatively vote to approve this one today, if for some reason, say, the police department, and I completely agree with Ms. Lima that the one that we have at the high school, I feel is great. So this is very separate from that conversation. If for some reason the police department tomorrow, because something I think is really important is not just, I think it's good and important to have documents like this because people change, right? Personnel change. So the chief could change, the person that's supervising this person could change, the actual officer could change. So I think it is important that even if things are working well in something, to have some documentation just in case the players change to go back to. And so when thinking about the selection piece, if for some reason the town called tomorrow and said, hey, like this person's not going to be here anymore, they're going to go do this, and this person's in now, does this MOU give the superintendent or the school committee or the district any kind of on paper conversation, leverage, et cetera, if they were concerned about the person that was being put in? Like I kind of saw it, but not.
Yeah, and I mean it does to a limited extent. I mean, I think as Dr. Duva pointed out, it is an employee of the police department. The school principal shall notify the detective lieutenant and school superintendent of any SRO conduct. So
that's all post selection though. That's
correct.
Not
That's
during selection.
Correct. And I think Dr. Duva, I don't know exactly where it is, has the right to, as he's already done, take a look at all of the training and make sure that the person at least has met the police criteria for going into that position. But in an imperfect world, if you will, if they were to say, Officer Hennius is now going to be your new SRO, and the school department was to have significant concerns with Officer Hennius, there'd be a conversation presumably between the principal, superintendent, and the police department, and either hash out those concerns or ultimately not. Ultimately, we've invited the SRO into the building. So if at some point in time the school committee was of the opinion they didn't want an SRO presence in the building, they would have that right.
Okay.
So we do have that final say if we no longer wanted that position or that position in there. And also under evaluation, it does say the school department administration shall regularly provide feedback to the police department on the effectiveness of the SRO. The school department and police department shall work collaboratively to make any changes needed to increase the effectiveness of the SRO as it pertains to the overall goals and objectives of the SRO position. So there's a collaborative approach in there that we're working together to what we expect to have as far as that role and the goals and objectives for that position.
So Jen, going back to what you were saying about wanting some of the language about selection, et cetera, and is there a specific thing that, based on the examples we had in the Massachusetts model, that you were looking for that we could, because we haven't had the conversation with Dr. Duva, so I want to make sure that he understands like the touching points that are really important from those documents.
Yeah, I mean, there are specific things like that, they say like the officer should have like specific experience working with youth. He should have a specific number of, years of experience. It shouldn't just be like the most senior officer who gets to bid into the job. Like there are specific, criteria that the officer should have. It shouldn't just be like the most senior officer gets to bid into the position.
I also want to be careful we're not limiting ourselves and then we have no one too, right? So if we're putting in specifics around years of experience and all, I just want to make sure we're not
Right, I mean,
then
one
kind of
of,
putting
one,
ourselves in a box, or, that we then don't have something.
the DOJ blurb says, law enforcement agencies should have a collaborative selection process for SROs that includes specialized qualifications and traits, like things like that. Like, that's not in there. So, I mean, there is, like I said, there is extensive research out there that says, like, things that are in there for best practices, and I don't see that in this here.
Okay, noted. And then also I was looking at the job description that the town provided for this position, and I was checking on the qualifications. I don't even know if that's the right word on this document, but basically the job requirements that I saw were need to be a sworn-in active member of the patrol and have a driver's license. And so I do think maybe, I don't know if we had this conversation with the town at all, but maybe there's some opportunity to meet somewhere in the middle, as we want to make sure, that the folks that are going to be in the school buildings are going to be there. Do we think that conversation is possible, or are we? And just to clarify, this agreement, I'm reading it, it's between the chief of police and the superintendent, so not the school department. And so where does that play into effect? Because
I think the school committee definitely has to sign off on this
Yeah.
and approve it. There's no question in my mind on that. We did actually, the issue of seniority came up, and I can just tell you what their representation to us was. This isn't a position that's based solely on seniority. The individual has to have the trainings and whatnot that I think that was provided to Dr. Duva.
So I guess my question is, why is that not in the agreement? Like, I'm not comfortable, like, it's fine and one thing to say it, but why not put it, what is the
I'm sure we can
resistance to
attach
putting
it.
in
He
the
sent it to me
document?
today, and because I knew this would probably come up, so I asked him if he could send me the exact training, and I'm just going through, and I can send this and share it. But I don't see why we couldn't have it as an attachment to this, just like we have the other attachments to the agreement.
Other thoughts from the committee regarding this?
I was curious about the length of the agreement, and I note that the final paragraph of the agreement notes that it will be reviewed with revisions made as necessary by the detective commander and approved by the chief of police. If this is to be a joint agreement, I'm wondering why, if there are going to be changes, that Dr. Duva would not have some involvement in changes to the agreement.
I think the way that's written, Tom, is and I agree with you, it's not abundantly clear as it's written, but I think it would be reviewed with the school department, but the detective commander and the police chief are the ones that were going to make the revisions and get the ultimate approval on their end before it came to the school committee.
I think it would
That's
be nice to
totally-
have it clarified that this is not going to be something that is done without involvement from the school
We
department.
can't yet, we would have to approve it, but we can
That
certainly
was-
propose that.
Yeah, I noticed that as well, Tom. And my other question was, is this a one-year MOU?
Yeah,
Is
it's
it-
reviewed annually.
Yeah.
Yep.
Other thoughts, questions from the committee?
The other thing that's not in there is any type of reporting and data collection requirements, and I think that's something that's important also.
Can you clarify that a little bit more, Jen?
There's nothing in there that says, what types of incidents is the SRO dealing with in the school, because it's very clear that the SRO should not be getting involved in anything. Like, if you're not calling 911 into the building, like, if you wouldn't call 911 into the building, the SRO shouldn't be doing it. So, like, what is the SRO actually dealing with? And there should be, a part of the MOU should be a list of annual reporting, not identifying information, obviously, but what types of incidents are happening within the school.
So I know that's reporting that we have to do on our end. That's required on the school end to report. We also have to report that to RIDE. But what you're saying is what is on the police department's end. What reporting are they doing?
Right.
Correct.
Other thoughts from the committee on the MOU that's presented in front of us? So right now, we're under unfinished business. We have a motion for discussion for the MOA for the SRO. It is under unfinished business for discussion and possible action. This spring, our goal was to have an MOA approved. This is what was presented from the administration. I'm the district attorney. And so there's options. We can have a different motion. We can...
I would like to send this back again. I'm not going to vote for this clearly. I don't think it represents what I am looking for. I don't think it meets what, again, I sound like a broken record, best practices, but this does not represent what I think best serves the students in this district.
Okay, other thoughts? And again, we just have a motion for discussion right now, so if we wanted to do something different, we would need a different motion.
So the high school wants this approved, I'm assuming, and the administration would like to move this forward.
We have a resource officer there
Yeah.
now.
We've
He's
been-
going to stay there. He's not going to leave because we don't have this approved.
Okay.
This was something that was coming through, I believe, from the school.
school committee, yeah.
Asking for
Yep.
it, so it's not being asked by the school.
So if we do not take action on this document today, there will be no negative impact to students tomorrow. So
School
is that-
officer will
that's-
stay
that was
there.
our request. Yep.
Dr. Duva, what are your thoughts on this agreement? And I want to note, I don't believe that you had this agreement until about 4 or 5 hours ago. Is that correct?
So we've been going back and forth with the police
Okay.
department on this. We didn't get the final until earlier when we were able to send it to you, but I've read it since last week when we sent it back
Okay.
to Captain Executive St.
Well, I apologize. I didn't have it till 4 or 5
Yeah,
hours
we didn't
ago.
have it to give to you
And I was
until
looking
today,
for
so.
it. I'd like to know what your thoughts are about this agreement.
I'm comfortable with it from what's in there and knowing that there's training that is done on their end, there's training that's done on anti-bias, there's training that's done on hate crimes, there's hours, I mean, there's 87 hours. There's more than that. Each category has a listing, and I can share that. And I know that they're open, like willing, that if we have training that we're providing at the school, that the SRO will take part in that. That's through a verbal agreement. It's not in there. We can ask for that to be put into the contract. I understand your concerns as well. And I know right now we have a very good relationship with the SRO, and there's no concerns with the person that's there. Not signing this is not going to interfere with the SRO being there at the school.
Other thoughts from the committee? Again, right now we're in a motion for discussion. I definitely think, from my perspective, I think Ms. Lima brought up some very good points. We've definitely had some of these conversations before. I think that if in my opinion, if the police department is not willing to put something in or something, I would like to maybe have some rationale behind that. Like I think it's important for us to understand the why, just as we have whys for the school committee on our side. I do get very concerned when two different municipalities have verbal agreements. So I think it is important that we have some spelled out things for the different trainings. I think it's wonderful that they shared it with you and that, it looks, from looking at your computer, it looks quite robust. But I do think that, putting something in like that, especially if there's some specific things that are very important for students, that conversation is worth having, because training is really the baseline for success, I believe, in a position like this. And I do have some concerns about the selection and the lack of input from the district in the selection process. I completely respect the police department, and but I think that if you're having someone in the building working with your students, there should at least be some sort of, at that point of entry of someone coming into the building, some sort of at least conversation or input in it. Obviously the police department will make their final determination, but I think that is a gap in this agreement. And so I think we're closer, and I really do appreciate the conversation and the movement, but I'm going to make a motion to table this at this time for further conversations.
I'll second that.
So we have a motion table and a second. Tables don't get discussion, so I'll call the question. All those in favor of tabling the MOA? Okay, all those opposed? Okay, so the motion to table passes, and we will continue to work with the administration on this. Okay, moving on to the next agenda item. It's item C, which is the Perkins Eastman contract. Can I get a motion for that, please?
Make a motion to discuss.
Thank you. So we motion discussed. Do I have a second? Okay. And so we'll open that up, and again, I'll turn it over to Dr. Buva or whomever from your team to, if you want to say anything before we have the discussion regarding this contract.
So you have the contract with Perkins Eastman. I know we've been working with them. The district has been working with them since April, right? April with no contract signed. And we asked them for a revision based on the timeline change with when the stage 2 is due to ride. Originally it was due in September, and now that has been extended through February. We know that I know that when this was discussed earlier in the summer or June, there was an agreement that $850,000 would be dedicated to put towards this portion of the work for stage 2 and design within the phase 1. Now that timeline has changed a bit because of when it's due in February. We have an agreement with Perkins Eastman to stay within that amount of $850,000 to do the work that is necessary to get us to the bond referendum in November. This is a revised proposal with the AIA contract for that work, and depending on what happens with the bond, we would then have another revision based on this, based on the contract, because we would be going even further with the work. But it does state in here what would need to be done from November through February to get the stage 2 completed. But right now, this contract proposal is only for the cost of the work that is necessary to get us through November for the bond.
Okay, thank you. Comments, questions, discussion from the committee?
So before, that 850 was just like part of a number to get to the bond, like that, she kind of threw that out there, Inga threw that out there. But now it's the whole number to get us to the bond?
That is what, so they're willing to do what work is necessary to get us through the bond referendum for the cost of $850,000.
Okay.
It will be more if the bond passes and we're able to, and we continue with the project. It will be more after that.
Okay. So the contract itself is, I guess I'm all over the map here. So we got a memo from you saying that you're recommending 6 through 8 for the new school.
Mm-hmm.
And in that you said that it's based on reinterpretation of enrollment projections. Is that based on new projections or just a different interpretation?
It's the same projections. I would say it's twofold. It's one based on the fact that right now this proposal is to build at the Davisville McGinn site, not Quinnesset. And when the proposal was to build at the Quinnesset site, the Quinnesset Elementary School would be demolished, which means we would have one less elementary school. And because of that, 5th grade would have to go to the middle school. We are now saying that Quinnesset Elementary would remain open. Looking at the projections from Float Analytics and looking at that, we believe that keeping Quinnesset open and doing some redistricting, there'll be redistricting that has to happen no matter if we're building a new middle school or not. There's going to need to be some redistricting from the southern end of town to the northern end of town. Looking at the schools, Quinnesset would be open, and we believe that by doing that, there will be enough space, right? And so the middle school would just be 6 through 8.
So when we had voted before, we had voted based on a recommendation from the building committee. So the building committee hasn't heard your recommendation.
I've sent this to the building committee.
But they haven't officially heard.
We have a meeting
Can
next
we
week.
vote on it without the building committee having heard it?
Yes.
We can.
Yes, and what you're doing is you're voting on the contract.
But the
right?
contract.
And the contract does specifically state 6 through 8 because
Yes.
we don't have a lot of time. We really need to move forward on them creating a design. The other piece of this too is that we're looking at creating a design of a 6 through 8 middle school that would also be smaller because we need to dedicate some of those funds for further capital improvements across the district as well. And so, what we're trying to do is to get to a smaller middle school. Also, a middle school that would be 6 through 8 that we know, we've looked at design, we've looked at educational programming, also just hearing from the community as well, and what we believe is best for the district moving forward for a middle school to be 6 through 8. And we also wanted to say that of this bond that we're going for of $167 million, it's not all just going to go into a middle school. There's capital improvements that we need to invest in across the district. And now's the time to be dedicating those funds to other facility needs. And that's, we're also working on creating a new capital improvement plan too. So, we're working on, I'll say behind the scenes, the administrative team of taking the work that we started at the building committee at our last meeting, looking at the facilities assessment that was done recently by Rose, identifying, prioritizing work that needs to be done throughout the district. We're going for a bond. If this bond goes through, we're not going to be asking, we won't be asking for another bond anytime soon. So we need to really be smart with how we're going to use the funds that we're asking for, and not just say it's all going to go into the middle school. And that's where we're also working with the architecture of saying this school needs, we need to make the middle school smaller. It's just going to be 6 through 8. We also need dedicated funds from this bond to put towards other capital improvements in facilities across our district through the use of the bond. So this is twofold in putting a plan out there of what this design will be and what the educational programming will be for the middle school, but also working with the architect and working on our end for a capital improvement plan to dedicate funds from this bond to put towards other schools and the facilities throughout the district to show our commitment to the town and our facilities.
Did the bond language get written in such a way that can be done?
Yes.
It did.
Yeah,
Okay.
we've gone back and forth, and I've talked to Mr. Mollis about it. We've talked to Ryan about this.
Okay.
Yep, Mike, did you have something to add?
I just wanted to add something in there, and by combining these other capital projects with the middle school, they will be eligible for the additional bonuses that we get from the middle school. So that's another piece of taking action now, allows us to combine these to maximize whatever bonuses we are able to get through the middle school.
All of this will be identified in the stage 2 application that we submit to RIDE in February. And anything that's approved to RIDE, like Ms. Ford was saying, will be reimbursable.
And just to clarify your question, Jen, so the building subcommittee is a subcommittee of the school committee, and they are advisory in nature. So there's no official approval that it's not like it has to go to them to go to us. I think in a perfect world, you would utilize them and their thoughts on something like this. But obviously, we're working against a time frame with the district, and then we also have new administration coming in. There's a lot of moving pieces, and so I think in the future we would kind of go. Ideally, we'd go back and if we need, but that's kind of not where we are, in my opinion. And then also just to clarify, this contract that is in front of us today. The amount of money that's in it is money that we have already approved, correct? There's no...
Right, so it was approved already, it just was never...
The contract never came, a revised contract never came back to us.
The revised contract and the school committee never allocated where those funds are coming from.
Yeah.
That's what we need to do tonight.
Yep. And so with this agreement, though, so the original proposal that came to us from Perkins Eastman, that in the past conversations that we had, that we were concerned about the amount of money based on how much we had in our fund balance was, I believe, 1.7, correct? And so I was looking at this agreement, and maybe I missed it because there was a lot of pages. But do we have a commitment from them that, from the end date of this contract to February 15th, that will not exceed that secondary amount.
That we don't. What we have in here is if the referendum does not
Yeah.
pass in November, that we're not held to
Yeah.
any agreement with
And,
them.
and the next contract would be for the completion of the project.
Yeah.
So it wouldn't come to you in pieces. It would be, okay, between start of project and bond referendum is the
Yeah.
850, and then from the bond referendum to turning over the keys is X.
Yeah. Yeah. But that funding would be coming from the bond itself.
Yes.
Correct. And in theory, the amount of money that we approved then, and that is in this contract, if the bond does pass, then these can also be submitted for reimbursement along with that as well. So this is the largest number it could be. If the bond doesn't pass, that is that. But it will. If it does pass, then we have some options as far as getting those turned in correct. Nodding.
Correct,
Yes.
yes.
Okay.
Yes, if the bond passes, then yes, we would. This would all be part of the reimbursements.
Okay. So right now we are.
So let me clarify.
Yeah.
The bond gets passed. We continue the work on the stage 2. Stage 2 gets approved by RIDE. All of this is approved, right, by RIDE, and then everything is reimbursed.
And if
If
it
RIDE
doesn't,
doesn't
the most
approve
we're out
stage 2,
is
then
the
you're just working with them. and
Which
going
we'd
back
already
and forth
approved.
until
Which
it's
we've
approved.
already approved, right?
Yep, so right now on the agenda, we are being asked to approve this contract, which is a revision of what we had been presented before us, which we did not approve last time because we were not comfortable with the 1.7 because we wanted to make sure that we had the funding. That's when we went and were very transparent with the town about where we were at, because we wanted to make sure that they had an understanding of that as well. And so at this point, I'm going to make a motion to approve the contract as presented.
I'll second that.
Okay, and then we can open it up for discussion or further discussion on that. And so the motion on the floor is to approve this contract as presented. Any further discussion?
I guess this would be for the administration, Dr. Duva. Just want to, after re-looking at the projections of the attendance, and I'm perfectly okay with it being a 6 to 8. I have 5 to 8. I can see advantages to both. But I guess my question is, we had originally been told that by moving the 5th into the middle school, it would free up 300 seats, something like that, that would give us the extra space that we would need. So you're comfortable for the next 5 years or so, and I know that's hard to do, but for the next 5 years, redistricting is going to get you those extra seats that you need to fill out the schools and without moving 5th grade.
I will say I am comfortable because
Okay.
Quinessa Elementary School will stay open.
Yeah.
And we also know Quinessa is under capacity.
Okay. That's my question. What schools are under capacity now? And so I guess that's
I think
part
for
of it as well.
for me, and I wrote this down to follow up with Dr. Duva, I'd love for maybe our next meeting to see the flow analytics report. I'm comfortable approving this contract today. I also am supportive of moving to 6 through 8. We were talking about that last time based on the recommendation of the site being Quinessa and some of the different pieces, and some of those things have changed. And so, I think that I do believe that either format can work. We see different districts in Rhode Island with that, et cetera. But I'm comfortable with that change at this point, and that's part of this contract, which is why obviously it's part of the discussion. So I'll be voting affirmatively for this contract at this point. Any further?
Mr. Waterman wants to say something.
And the flow analytics report is an appendix within the Educational Facility Master Plan, so it is already available. It's out there publicly.
Perfect. I was looking more for maybe a presentation to the school committee so that we could maybe have a conversation about needs or different things that might need to happen as far as redistricting, et cetera. Now, I know it's available data-wise, and I appreciate that very much. So we have a motion on the table right now to approve this contract. Any further discussion?
I was going to ask Dr. Duva publicly to elaborate on why the change from 5 to 8 to 6 to 8, but I think I understand it based on the explanations that have been given. I agree that I think we could have been okay with a 5 to 8, but there have been so many people in this community who have expressed anxiety and concern about a 5 to 8 school. And I think we're looking for consensus here. We need to build this school. I think it's really important for this community. I think it's really good for this community. I've seen a lot of negative statements online. I disagree with many of them. I've heard complaints that people lack enough information. Recently, I'm hearing criticism that why are you spending money on having an architect explain to us why this is a good idea? Those two ideas are not compatible to me, and yet they come from the same critics. I think this needs to move forward. I think that we can have a good, effective middle school with grades 6 to 8, and I have great respect for Dr. Duva's opinion. I know this is not a decision that he came to lightly, so I agree with Dr. Earl. I'm going to vote to support this.
Any further discussion? Okay, hearing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor of approving the Perkins-Eastman contract, which includes the money that we had previously had set aside for this project, or had approved for this project, as well as a change in the scope for the school to be 6 through 8 versus 5 through 8, please say aye. Okay, motion carries unanimously. Sorry, continue. Yep. And so the contract is approved, and thank you so much to the administration and Perkins-Eastman for all the work that they are doing for the middle school project. Okay, so now we'll move on to item D. And so item D has a lot of different policies for the school committee to review, and so I will turn it over to the policy chair to make the motions.
I'm going to make a motion to move up the policy subcommittee report.
Okay, perfect. So we have a motion to move up the policy subcommittee report. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? All those in favor? Great. Okay, so we'll start with the policy subcommittee report, and then we'll move into the motions. Go ahead, Jen.
At the 8/21 policy meeting, we continued our review of policies that are required as part of RISE's annual health report, as well as taking a second look at the new proposed written information security policy. That policy plus 3 others are on tonight's agenda as for first reads by the school committee. The other policies discussed require further review and input and will be on the future policy subcommittee agenda. Our next meeting is scheduled for 9/11, and on the agenda for that meeting are policy GCB and related policies, as well as the policy around collecting gate receipts and advisory committees and liaisons.
Great, thank you so much. Any questions for the policy report? Policy subcommittee report? Okay, hearing none, we'll go back to item D, which is the policy item under unfinished business. Jen?
Okay, so I'm going to go through the ones that are on here as a first read, and these are recommended for revision. The first one is policy JICI, which is weapons use and possession on school property. This was reviewed as part of the RIDE annual health report. We updated the definition of school property and school-sponsored events. We updated the penalties, the statutes, and the form. The next one is policy JLCD, drug overdose, the naloxone policy. This was also reviewed as part of the RIDE annual health report. We updated the purpose and the training requirements, and we had Colleen Schneck's input on this as well. I had a question on this for Dr. Duva. Were you able to reach out to the NKPD based on our conversation in the policy meeting for this? Ken?
No, I have not.
Will you please?
Yes, I need to do that.
Thank you. The next one is policy GBE3, which is the controlled substance and alcohol testing. This was also reviewed as part of the RIDE annual health report. We updated the type of vehicle and the language around when drug testing may occur. Does anybody have any questions on these?
Questions or suggestions?
Or suggestions?
Yep, so again, so I'll make a motion from D. So motion for DI to open it up for discussion. Want a second? So that would include I, 1, 2, and 3.
Yep.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second, so we'll open it for discussion. So any thoughts, comments, or questions from the committee regarding these 3? So this is our first read on this, an opportunity to provide the policy subcommittee some feedback for possible additional edits before it comes back to us for our second read and hopeful approval. The only thing that I wanted to just bring up on the naloxone policy, so policy JLCD, we at the policy subcommittee had a conversation about which buildings and different things, and the more I thought about it, I would like to see in the policy perhaps some language regarding all school buildings, not just the ones that children are in. So I would like that to go back to the policy subcommittee for consideration.
Okay.
Anything else that people have?
The
Questions?
JLCD.
JLCD, yeah. Just to talk through the language in that a little bit more to make sure we're good there. Anything else for those at this point?
So we had talked at the policy subcommittee about passing this and then revisiting it. You want to send it back and not pass it?
This is just a first read.
Okay.
So we have a policy subcommittee meeting before we would do a second read.
Okay. Yep.
So we have an opportunity
Okay.
to edit it
Okay.
before the committee sees
So we
it.
talked about making sure we had it in this building.
Yep.
So.
Yep.
All right,
Yeah, I
so
just
I'll-
want to look at that language just to see if we want to edit anything before it comes back for the second read here.
All right, so I'll put it on the agenda for the 11th.
Yes, please.
Okay.
Anything else from the committee to go back to the policy subcommittee on these? Okay, hearing none, we'll go on to the next part, Jen.
Okay, so I'll make a motion to discuss D2, 1 through 4.
If you're looking for approval, you could
Oh, I
technically
need
just
to
make.
approve, I'm going to make a motion to approve D2 through 4. These are all second reads. We had seen these at the
Just to
last-
clarify, sorry, D2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4.
1, 2,
And it's like the
3.
Roman numeral, and then we got some
Right.
numbers.
These are all
Perfect.
second reads.
This next
We had
section.
seen these at the last school committee meeting. It's the reporting child abuse, the food allergy, the drug-free work in schools, and the use of school building and fields.
Great. Second. Okay, so we have a motion and a second to approve these 4. Do we have any further discussion?
I'll make a second.
Okay, so we have a motion, we have a second. Any discussion? Jules, did you get that? Okay, perfect. Okay, hearing no discussion, I'll call the question. All those in favor of approving the changes to policy JLF, policy JLCE, policy GBEC, and policy KF.1, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay, those pass unanimously, so thank you. And then Jen?
I'm going to make a motion to approve the deletion of policy JLFR. This is also the second time that we're seeing this. And this is because we combined it
Wait,
with
just stop for a second.
Okay.
So we have the motion, do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, thank you. Discussion, go ahead, Jen.
This is because we combined it with JLF.
Okay. Any further discussion from any of the other committee members? Okay, hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries unanimously, thank you. Next one.
Okay, I'm going to take these one at a time because these have a few changes. I'm going to make a motion to discuss GBEB.
You don't want to do a motion to approve?
Yeah, I want to make a motion to approve with an amendment. Andrew, how do I do that for a second? Right, I can make a motion to amend.
No, so make a motion, I would make a motion to,
Make a motion to amend the first reading, what was done at the last meeting, or motion to amend the policy.
yeah, you make a motion to amend, you're making a motion to amend what's
I want to
presented
make a
in front of
motion
us.
to approve with an amendment.
That's fine too. We just did the amendment will
Yeah.
have to be up for discussion.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so here's what we're gonna do, even though it seems weird. Make a motion to approve that one.
Okay, I'm going to make a motion to approve GBEBB.
Okay, do we have a second? Second. Okay, so we have a motion there, and then in discussion, if you would like to make an amendment to that, we'll do that, we'll approve the amendment, and then we'll go back to the full thing.
Okay. I would like to amend this policy as follows on the last page under reporting to the school committee, where it says annually the superintendent or her designee. I'd like to change that to their designee.
Okay, so we have a motion to approve on the table, and then we have a new motion for an amendment on it. So do we have a second on the amended language?
Second.
Okay, and then any discussion on the amended language? Okay, hearing none, let's vote just on that part. So all those in favor of the amended language, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay, so now we have that included in the original motion. So and that motion is still on the table, so do we have any further discussion on that? Okay, hearing none, we'll call the question. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay, that motion carries unanimously.
Okay, so I'm going to make a motion, it's going to be the same thing for the next one. I'm going to make a motion to approve policy ACE.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
And then I'm going to make a motion to amend on the last page, on the third page under facilities and programs where it referenced parents, to change that to parents and guardians.
Okay, so we have an amendment to the second read of this one. Do we have a second for that? Thank you. Any discussion on that? Okay, hearing none, let's vote on that amendment. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay, that motion carries, and then we'll go back to the full one. Any discussion on that policy? Okay, hearing none, we'll call that question. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay, motionlessly. Next.
Going to make a motion to approve with no amendment policy BH, school committee chain of command.
Okay, do we have a second for that one?
Second.
Thank you. Discussion?
None.
Okay, hearing none, we'll call that. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion carries unanimously. Number 4.
Make a motion to approve EEAEC, student conduct on buses.
Do you want to do you have like
There's an
amendments? Can you
amendment.
do the, oh, great. Okay.
Second.
Thank you.
Okay, and then I'm going to amend that for references where it says parents to change it to be parents, guardians throughout the policy.
Okay. Do we have an amendment for that?
Second.
Thank you. Or a second for that amendment. Thank you, Jenny. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay. And then back to the original motion. Any further discussion on that one? Okay. Hearing none, we'll call the question. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay.
And then I'm going to make a motion to approve policy GBAC, non-discrimination, and policy IHAJ, social networking and text messaging.
So number 5 and number 8.
Second.
Wait, hold on.
Yes.
Okay, so we have a motion, we have a second. Discussion? Okay, hearing none, we will call the question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, perfect. So 5 and 8 have been approved, and then number 6.
JBA2, Safe School Act, I'm going to make a motion to approve,
Okay, do we have a second?
A second.
and then I'm going to make a motion to.
Wait, hold on. Wait, you're going to do an amendment on those? Okay, go ahead.
I'm going to make a motion to amend references to his, her, to change to their, and change parent to parent guardian.
Okay, so we have an amendment. Any discussion on that? Hearing none, we'll vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, and then we'll go back to the original motion. Any discussion on that? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We get everybody on that one?
Yeah.
All right, perfect. Thank you.
And then JII, Student Parent Appeals Process, make a motion to approve.
Second.
And then I'm going to make a motion to amend references to parent, change to parent guardian.
Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay, back to the original one. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
I figured out how we could do that quicker, just so you know. Took me.
Okay.
It's fine. I appreciate your diligence, but I realized what I could have. I didn't realize they were all the same amendments. We could have done a blanket, but that's okay. Here we are.
That'll be for the
You
next
know.
one. And then
We've got
I'm
time
going
on
to
the
make
first
a
one.
motion to recommend to delete policy ACA, ACGBA, policy GBAR, and GBAA.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
Jules, your choice. Any discussion?
Sorry.
Okay, hearing none, we'll call this question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, motion's carried unanimously. Thank you.
Noting that we're just updating the date, no changes needed for policy JICG. And then we have a new policy for a first read tonight on a written information security program. Mike, do you want to give a quick little?
Do you want to just make a motion for discussion for that
Oh,
one?
can I
So
make a
just to
motion?
clarify, we don't need to do anything for, sorry. So does anyone have any, so I'll just go make a quick motion for discussion for JICB. Do I have a second for that?
Oh, I just said that.
I know, but we need
Oh,
to,
okay.
because it's first read, we just need to give the community an opportunity to talk if they want.
Wait, no. The tobacco is second read.
Tobacco second read.
And then that's the one I was just talking about, the written information security. I'll make a motion to discuss,
Yeah.
and then I was going to turn it to Mike, yeah.
Okay, perfect. So you have a motion for that one. Do we have a second? Thank you. All right, Mike?
So this is a policy that Chaz from my office has worked on with the trust. So if there are any specific questions, or Chaz, I don't know if you want to give an overview of the policy. I know you gave it a policy subcommittee, so I'll throw it to you.
Yeah, so the written information security policy here, the WISP, is basically just a district policy that will kind of satisfy two things. One, it will enforce the district to operate under best practices in the consistently ever-changing and dynamic world of not just security, but also cybersecurity, and along with other rule sets that we've not had officially in place in writing. And the second thing it satisfies, which is probably a little more pertinent in the immediate, is it keeps us with having specifically cyber insurance from the trust. There's a lot of requirements that are coming over the next few years. One of those that we've implemented that was pretty substantial across the district was multi-factor authentication. So that's one that everyone kind of felt. But the current policy here is one of the many things needed to kind of satisfy everything, so that way if something unfortunately does happen, if it does, we have some net as well for that. So that's the real kind of short, sweet to it.
Thanks, Jess.
Thank you. Any further discussion on this one? Again, this is just a first read, so we'll see this one again. I would just like to thank the administration for working on it. When we were presented with it at the policy subcommittee, it was very well thought out, lots of detail. And I think that the policy subcommittee had a good discussion too about some things that we could add to it. So that was a really great development of a new policy that'll be good for the district. Okay, any other discussion?
That's it for policies.
Okay, thank you so much to the policy subcommittee and to Ms. Lima as the chair. Obviously, we are trying to play some catch up and make the policies more efficient for the district, and so we will be having some longer topics for those, but I think it's so important to make sure that those are cleaned up and updated, so thank you.
We're getting there.
We are getting there. That was a good one, but very, very good. Okay, we're moving on to new business. How are we doing? Push through, need a very quick recess, everybody cool? We're pushing, I know Jenny. Jenny always says push through, just to make
We
sure
still have
work.
people do presentations too.
Oh,
They've been
yay!
here since
Most
probably
certainly.
early hours this morning.
Yes, okay, we're moving here, people. Okay, so we are now at new business. So the first item is item A, which is the extension of OPM services. And so,
Could I make a motion to move the building subcommittee report up? I think it fits with
before that
what
one.
you're talking about there. It'll be very brief.
Yes. I was. Did we do the summer school one right now?
Yes.
Okay, I would actually like to.
And Elga's going too.
Well, I don't know if I can do all of those. All right, we'll just push through. Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it. In the future, Dr. Duber, feel free to let us know, and we're happy to move things up as needed for staff. Because we know that Nemroni's NDs are very long. We appreciate them. Okay, so we're going to stick to the plan because there's a bunch. So new business. So I need a motion for item A.
I'll make a motion.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. Tom made a motion that he wanted to move the building report up. And so do we have a second for that?
I'll second that.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you so much. And so we'll turn that over to whomever's doing the building subcommittee report.
That'll be me. The building subcommittee met on August the 23rd. Focus continued to be on, as we've already discussed this evening, building one consolidated middle school at Davisville. The meeting did include an update from representatives of Perkins Eastman and the project manager involving environmental testing at the proposed Davisville Middle School site. No major issues were identified, although additional testing and evaluation will continue. The meeting also moved on to consideration of capital improvement projects for the district. Mr. Waterman produced several spreadsheets that identified projects in order of priority with ranks of 1 through 5. Number 1 projects are being the highest priority. It appears from the presentation there are many things that could be worked on, but roof replacement is the highest priority for the schools. Cost estimates were provided. It is clear that if these projects are delayed or postponed, costs are likely to increase. That was it. That's what I have to discuss, and I think that dovetails reasonably well into the project contract.
Great, thank you so much. Any questions from the committee regarding the building subcommittee report? Okay, hearing none, we'll go back to, thank you so much, Tom, back to new business, item A. I need a motion.
I'll make a motion to discuss.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, so we have a motion to discuss the extension of OPM services, and so I'll turn it over to Dr. Duva or designee for that one.
I will take this for you. So you have an extension to the Jacobs contract because of the change in the timeline for the stage 2 submission.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why there's this extension. I want everyone to understand that an OPM is required through the entire length of the project, of all of the construction that we are recommending at the middle school, and any larger projects that are approved through a stage 2. But what we're doing is we're giving you contracts in chunks because we need to get through the referendum, and that's the same thing like the Perkins Eastman. The Jacob contract is the same thing. So this extension brings us through referendum. It is noted in here what the cost will be after referendum through stage 2. I asked for a disclaimer in here that if the bond's not passed, we're not responsible for the $45,000. So if you agree to approve this contract tonight, which I am highly recommending that you do, the cost that we will be responsible for through referendum is the $29,000 that was already approved through a contract with them, and the $25,000 that is noted in this revised contract that is the value of their work from September through November of 2023.
Okay.
And so that is
Yep, and one of the changes.
I just lost my train of
You're
thought.
fine. We're thriving right now. Don't worry.
That brings us to
one of the big changes too, just as a reminder to the committee, was that the stage 2 application was going to be due at a different time, but then the state made changes to that timeline as well, which gave us extension also. Just as a reminder of kind of how some things shifted as we've been moving forward. So further discussion.
Just what I was trying to say was that will bring us to a total of $54,000 that is needed for Jacob's through the referendum.
So they're charging us another $25,000 to get us to the bond referendum.
Yes.
And then there's an additional cost because the stage 2 deadline slid out, correct?
Yes.
And so can you just explain to me, because I remember there was a discussion about when the OPM bidding came in, that they were so much lower than everybody else. Like, so what is the reason for that extra $25,000?
So,
Let Mike, just because I wasn't here for that.
Yep.
so originally, they were just coming in for just through stage 2. So that was from...
I only want to know about just through the referendum. That's just what I want to know. Like this extra $25,000 that they're charging us, why is that?
For the work that they're going to do between what was going to be September 15th through November 7th.
Right, but so what was the $29,000 originally for?
That was the work to get us from April to September 15th.
Okay. Okay, so it was never to get us to the bond referendum
No.
to begin with? Okay.
Correct. So originally, we were going to have our stage 2 completed
It was supposed to be due.
by September 15th. So
Okay.
probably tonight you would have been approving it. We'd have a complete package, and then it would be more on the district, working with the town, doing the public forums, and doing the stuff we're still going to do coming forward. But with the shift in timeline, the shift in sites, there's now a need to continue the stage 2 work between now and bond referendum, and then bond referendum to...
Okay, all right, that makes sense, okay.
Mike, can you say that amount again? Basically what April to September was as far as the cost?
$29,000.
Yeah.
And
And so we paid $29,000 for April, May, June, July, August, right? 5 months?
correct.
And then we're being asked to approve $25,000 for September to November.
Correct.
So 2 months.
Correct.
And the rationale from the company is it's a lot of work, is what I'm reading.
So especially with the shift in sites, so really we're starting from July on this new McGinn site. We've had to reset a lot of our services. So everything that we're doing, that we did in, not everything, much of what was done in April, May, June is now being redone July, August, September, October, November.
You're saying it's 2 months for the, like, I see, like, the.
Yeah, I mean,
per month cost.
I
see
think
what
it's a
you're
lot of,
saying,
I
yeah.
think, and I've been very upfront about this and very concerned throughout this process about how, and this is not on our district whatsoever, but kind of the process in general, that it is, for me, like, not knowing the original fees for the scopes of the projects, from both of the sides is very unusual, like, in the way that I'm used to seeing information, and it's concerning because I feel like we have no choice but to approve this at this point. It's so important, and you know, I really want to see this project move forward, but I think that $25,000 is a lot of money from September to November for a service that we paid $29,000 from April to September. And I understand that it's a lot of work, but I wanted to at least say on record that I think it's a lot of money, and also I feel very pressured to have to approve it at this point. And another question I had regarding the fee is, and maybe I missed this when we were talking about the fund. Where's the additional $25,000 coming from, I guess, is my simplest way
So
of
that's
asking that
through the
question.
memo that I sent regarding the fund balance, right?
Yeah.
So that is the 904,000 that I'm recommending.
Got it,
you-
that's included in that.
That's-
Okay, thank you for the clarification. Further discussion on this item?
Jacobs is going to be participating in all of the public forums and all that stuff, so there's more extra meetings on top of what we had initially planned for them.
And due to, I know, when, I guess that's not on this agenda item, I'll ask later, never mind. Okay, any further discussion on what is in front of us right now, which is approving,
So just to be clear, we're approving the 99.
the extension of the
The 29
OPM
to-
services.
From 29 to 99, but right now we're only allocating from 29 to 54, is that correct?
So we're actually not saying
Yes.
where it's coming from,
We're
right?
not
We're just
allocating.
saying.
Well, in the
Just
next
approve.
thing,
Yeah.
Yeah.
so
Yeah,
we.
so right now we're saying,
Right.
yes, we approve this
But just
extension
in
for
my
Jacobs.
head, I want to be
Yeah.
saying, like, we're approving 99, but we're only saying where a portion of that 99 is coming from in the next step, correct?
In theory, the document is 70, Jen, because we had already
Approved the 29, yeah.
the prior
Yeah.
amount. So the document in front of us is the 70,000. It has the breakdown of the 25, which is the value from September to November, and then the asterisk on the 45, which would only happen if the bond passes.
Okay.
Did I get that correct?
Yes.
I'll look at that.
Okay.
Okay. Further discussion, questions, clarification on the item. It is currently a motion for
I
discussion
will
only.
make a motion to approve.
Thank you. Okay, so we have a motion to approve and a second on that. Any further discussion? Okay, hearing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay, that motion carries unanimously. Okay, so we had said 100 years ago that we were going to move. Just kidding, sorry. I've been up till 2 a.m. every night with college students this week, so here we are. Okay, we were going to move the item A under unfinished business 2023 to 2024 school budget to after this item that we just did, and so we are now at that part of the agenda again. And so can I get a motion? The one that's on there is a motion to approve the allocation, so someone can make a motion for that or whatever you want. So can we get a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the allocation as recommended by the administration.
I'll second that.
Okay. Further discussion?
The only comment that I'd like to make is that I am concerned about the $500,000 reappropriation that we have to make without any firm, confirmation that we have a surplus coming, and that if there is no surplus, we have a problem. So I just want that on record.
So we will have, we're going to have the audit, but looking at where we are right now with the books, we do believe that there would be at least
That amount.
that amount that's there,
Yeah,
right?
and it's based on that
then-
statement that I'm comfortable making this motion, so.
Yeah, and then we'll have the audit, and the audit will be complete over the next few months.
Is there a possibility that we could get, I know the audit officially, will document that, but is there a possibility that we might be able to get some projections before that, or is it really probably November-y?
We can get, we probably
Yeah.
get a preliminary projection to share, right?
Uh-huh.
We can't say that it's approved until the audit is completed.
Yep.
So.
Completely understand. Further questions on the motion? Okay, hearing none. Okay, hearing none, I'll call the question. So, all those in favor, please say aye. Okay, motion carries unanimously. And next, we will go to correspondence. As Jen's doing that, just as a reminder, we added this agenda item here to be able to help communicate those who might not be able to be here in person. The school committee does have an official school committee address that goes to all of the school committee members, and only correspondence that are sent to that address are kind of high level reported out at the meetings. Ms. Lima?
So on 8/16, we heard from Karen Martone regarding the bond vote that evening. On 8/17, we heard from Kate Harnish regarding Hamilton School Grade 4. On 8/19, we heard from Karen Martone regarding promoting bond votes. On 8/29, we heard from Megan Riley regarding the bond question. On 9/4, we heard from Jane Stokes regarding the middle school proposal. On 9/5, we heard from Susan Tarbox regarding Dr. Duva's middle school recommendation. On 9/5, we heard from Karen Martone regarding the school committee meeting on 9/5. On 9/5, we heard from Robert Jones regarding the school committee meeting. And on 9/5, we heard from Karen Martone again regarding the school committee meeting on 9/5. And that's it.
Thank you so much. So we'll move on to the next item, which is reports. And we have a special report today, which is the summer school update. And so I will turn it over to Dr. Clark for that. Happy first day of school.
Yay, happy first day of school, yes. And we want to highlight all the wonderful things that happened this summer. We were very busy over the summer, and I just want to highlight several of the programs. Over 450 students were served this summer to promote their academics, so to, combat that summer slide and to promote, accelerate that. So I'm just going to go through each of the programs. The first program here is the K-5 MTSS Success Academy. Katie Gibbons was the coordinator. They met 4 days a week for 3 weeks. We changed the program up. It was, before we had serviced just math or reading. We did a combined effort, so it was 3 hours in math and reading skills. We serviced 51 students total, and you can see here we based it on their individual MTSS goals, the number of students that met their goals. They had a math goal, a writing goal, and a reading goal, so we had some great success with that program. This was partially funded by ESSER too. I just want to point out the funding sources as we go through this. The next one we have is the middle school summer program. This was our first opportunity to work with 6 through 8. Prior, we weren't able to staff this program, so we were excited to get the staffing. Bethany Caramel was the coordinator of both this and the high school. The students met 5 days a week for those 3 weeks. They had 2-hour classes in ELA and/or some of them stayed on for math and did both. So 60 students taking a total of 95 classes because some did math and ELA. Some just came for one or the other based on their recommendation. Little learning curve here. We used STAR as the data point. We reassessed the STAR and compared it to the end of the year. We were hoping for at least stability or growth. You can kind of see our reading wasn't as strong as we'd like it to be. Based on what we learned from the elementary, I would go and make individualized goals based on MTSS plans for next year and really do the baseline based on individual goals rather than a STAR screener that just didn't capture what the students were working on specifically in those 3 weeks. So we had some learning there. Again, partially funded by ESSER. The next one was the high school program, so Bethany Caramel was the coordinator. Again, the same span of that 5 days a week for 3 weeks. We had 8 courses with live instructors, and also we offered the Edmentum online portal that offered other courses. So we had 116 students. Obviously, some of them were taking multiple classes, taking 161 classes for credit, and we're excited to report that 155 passed or earned credit. So we had a really great success rate with that program. We were really excited, and those are the programs there listed, the courses that we offered. Again, partially funded by ESSER. I'm going to ask Jackie DiLorenzo to come up and speak to our 2 preschool programs, K programs.
Good evening. So I was able to coordinate 2 programs this summer. One was our Ramp Up to Kindergarten program. This is the first time this has been done in the district. We received some funds through IDEA Part B for COVID relief. So for preschool or early childhood age students who didn't get the opportunity during COVID to be part of a preschool program, we looked at some learning loss, and so we created this program. I was able to hire 2 K-certified teachers and 4 teacher assistants. There was 2 classrooms, 15 students in each. We did a survey, a lottery. There were 34 interested families, 4 had backed out, so we had an even number of 30. So I did 15 students in each classroom, and it was just very successful. It was 6 days, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursdays, from 8:30 to 11:30. Parents provided transportation, and the teachers planned play-based activities, routines, classroom routines. So it was really great. I did put a survey out to the families, and you can see some of the feedback. 100% of families reported that their students were more comfortable with starting kindergarten, and we added this cute little quote from one of the families. My son absolutely loved the Jump Start program. He called it practice kindergarten. He came home happy and very proud of himself with all the activities he did in his class. He can't wait to do more at Forest Park. So I think it was a real positive program. Because this was grant funded through ESSER, a lot of parents said, I hope this program continues. So I think it's a conversation I'd like to have moving forward to continue to support this program over the summer, and look at some different funding sources that we could use. So that was our Jump Start program. The other program I coordinate each summer is the Countdown to Kindergarten program, and I do that in collaboration with the Office of Family Learning and the PTOs from each elementary school. The program is held 5 nights at 5 of the elementary schools. So we do 5 nights. It's an hour. The bus is there to give students bus rides. We provide a little canvas bag with an August calendar. I put on some activities that are aligned with the Rhode Island Early Learning and Development Standards on getting ready for kindergarten activities parents can do at home through the month of August. And then OFL has information in the bag for the students, as well as the PTOs. Tables are set up at the event, PTOs, parents as teachers, the community health workers are there to give information out as well. And it is a district event. Principals and teachers are not required to be there, but some do volunteer to attend. And parents just love it. The kids come to their school's playground. They're able to play in the playground and talk to each other and get to know the other families and students and meet. So it was very successful. We had 156 incoming K students that attended out of 241 that was registered at the time we did the event. So those were the 2 K transition programs for our preschool.
Great. Just 2 more to finish up with. Our extended school year program, so to work with our students with IEPs who qualify to work on their goals. Michelle Steimel was the coordinator for this. It ran 4 to 5 weeks depending on the student and their goals. 90 students were serviced in pre-K to 5, 26 students in K to 12, and 11 students had individual walk-in services. So the servicing was provided for reading, writing, math, occupational therapy, speech, and language therapy. So another successful program. And our final one that was also fully funded by ESSER was in partnership with, called the Summer Squad. It's a partnership with the NK Recreation Department to reduce summer learning loss. They meet with the students across their park time in the mornings, 9 to 11:30, to work on academics. So we funded 5 teachers through the ESSER funding and 1 through the McKinney-Vento Homeless Grant to work with those students on reading and math. So lots have been going. I want to thank all of the teachers, all of the coordinators, the clerks in these buildings, the maintenance and custodial staff that work to support this, everyone. I think it was a very successful program this year, and we're very proud of the growth that our students had and excited about what we were able to do over the summer months. So thank you. Any questions?
I have 2 quick questions.
Okay.
How were the students selected for the programs, like at the elementary, middle?
The K to 8 was based on MTSS Tier 3, so those students that carried Tier 3, which is based on a set of criteria, run our screening tools and other grade and teacher recommendations. So anyone who had received Tier 3 services in reading or math qualified for that program.
Okay, so only Tier 3.
Correct.
Okay. And
Ooh, I just have a related, but like on that note, I just had a different question. Out of and you don't have to get if this is. I don't expect you to have this number, but I would be curious of how many students were recommended versus actually ended up attending, and if we and again,
I would love to get back to you on that. Once again, and we've said this for a few years, busing is always an issue.
That was my next question.
No, it's the greatest hurdle that we hear from families of why they can't enroll their students. So it's a constant issue. We tried to work with the rec departments to figure out busing to and from the rec programs and other avenues. Obviously, we know our busing fleet and drivers were limited, and they're servicing our ESY students with the mini fleet for the summer months. Because that's required, so then it just leaves us up. So we tried many different avenues again, but it is the one hurdle we'd like to overcome next year and going forward with a more robust summer program to offer for all students. We need to figure out the busing.
Okay.
That was my other question too, was the how many.
I don't have that number. I'll have to get back to the coordinators about that.
No worries. I'm just curious about how many students are taking advantage of it that were recommended, and maybe some demographics of the students would be helpful as well, just to look for themes, etc. And I definitely, would love to see us work on trying to solve the bus situation for our students, like to be in a district and not be able to provide transportation for students that really need to be able to participate in these programs. I know it's difficult, but I'm positive that we can come up with a solution. So looking forward to hear more about that. And I also know it goes quick, so we need to have these conversations kind of soon so that you all can do the planning needed and that families and folks can make those plans. So we'll keep up on that with the agendas over the fall. Other questions from the committee?
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Okay. So we are now at, and I did make note for future agendas to make sure to move on to the reports when we have folks coming in, because that is next. Okay, moving on to item B, which is the financial reports. And so these are, for lack of a better word, some catch-up reports that we would normally be getting on our agendas because of some of the transitions in the finance department. This is some catch-up, so thank you so much for providing these. I don't think we need to go through line by line, but Elle, of course, if you have anything that you'd like to tell the committee about this, or if the committee has any questions, we would welcome either side. So.
I have a question. We used to get a list of like an alphabetical checklist by who the checks were made out to. Is it possible to get that again?
If you're gonna.
I was just going to say yes, I can do that and write it down.
Okay.
Do you want?
Can you just say on the microphone for the folks at home, Elle? Sorry. Our many fans that are staying with us at 9:25 at night want to make sure they heard what you said.
Hi, Elle Phoenix again. We can provide to the list of all the checks that cleared each of the banks. Is that what you're asking?
Yeah,
for?
like I can't remember. There was a separate report. I can't remember what was it called. Like
It was a check register.
A check register list of everything
Yes,
that cleared.
yeah.
Yep.
Alphabetically.
Yeah.
Alphabetically.
Alphabetical. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. So if we could go back and we can do like addendums to March, April, May, and June. That'd be great.
Sure.
Okay. Any other questions or discussion regarding the reports that were presented to the school committee in their packets? Okay. Thank you so much. And that, before we adjourn, I just want to take a quick moment to thank everyone that worked really, really hard for the first day of school, and to wish the high schoolers who are starting tomorrow, right, 10, 11, 12 going tomorrow, and our 241, but probably more because that was when it was registered, kindergartners that are joining the district tomorrow. Wish everybody luck. So with that, that brings us to the end of our agenda. Can I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved. Second.
Oh, that one we always go real fast. Thank you so much. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Thank you all.
Around all day.
I'm more than